Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about island support using Lychee Pro. And this particular episode is going to focus on getting your island supported only, or not fully supporting the model. And this particular one, we have actually increased the scale in this particular model to 200%. This model is a twin goddess miniatures. You can find them on myminifactory.com. We are not licensed to sell them, but I love their models and I buy tons of them, so you're going to see quite a lot of them in my tutorials. I believe this character's name is Millie, and she's the Barbarian. There's also a pinup edition of her, and I believe there's a rock band edition of her as well. One of the first things you want to do is you actually want to lift the character off the platform once you have them in a good position. Now, of course, if you've already checked out our hollowing tutorial, you will have a hollowed model, and it's going to have a lot less material to work with, so your island and supporting in general is going to be a lot better. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm adding some weight, or distance rather, between the bottom of the model and the build plate, which is going to add a little bit of area for me to build those bottom supports. Otherwise, you don't really have much room for them to grow, and that doesn't allow you to build very large support systems underneath. And the bottom of that axe there, as you can see, is flat, so I'm going to use that as a basis to start the support. And the first thing we want to do is go to the Repair tab, and let's get to a better view. And we're going to go ahead and I usually like to go with the rectangle raft just to kind of give it a shape. And I don't really mess with these stats very much here. Keep that the same. And as you can see, the model is hollowed with some drain holes in the feet and the butt that make contact with the chair. So that should look fine. And we're going to go over to the supporting tab, and we're going to go over to the island tab. All right, now we're detecting the islands. Usually takes a second or two. It doesn't take too long. Honestly, unless the model is really complex, this shouldn't take very long. So I always put this on real because I prefer it to show me everything that it thinks is an island. Now, this isn't the end-all decision on this. I will sometimes add additional supports in or around islands that I see that aren't necessarily noted by the system. It tries. It does a pretty good job. Alright, let's take a look. Looks like we have 69 islands. Nice. So, now, there is an option to apply automatic island use, which a lot of folks are going to tell me that that's a terrible thing to do. I don't necessarily like doing it. It does sometimes actually give you a fairly decent layout, and it's not always terrible depending on how well the model was designed. But let's take a look and see, using some of the preset stuff that I have, if what the auto application will actually do. We'll see what it does. And you can actually use the slicer level there to kind of detect your islands as you move your way up as well. That is actually a handy way to do it if you have trouble finding them. That's actually a pretty good way to find the pesky ones. Or you can use the show tool, which will show you directly. Now we're just going to go ahead and try the apply all. So let's see what it does. This always gives me a little bit of a laugh. It's not far from what I wind up doing myself, but it's definitely less organized and far less optimized or structured. So there's all the islands supported according to Lychee or Lychee. It's not a terrible job. Some of them are a bit too close. That hand right there would definitely be problematic in my opinion, because each one of those fingers is going to be a support tip, and I don't enjoy that concept at all. The final supporting application is probably going to be far different, but that's what the software will do. Now, if you are new to this and you want to try using that kind of application, I'm not saying not to. Some people don't like it. Some people say that the software applies far too much. It's up to you. The only thing you just need to keep in mind that it's going to be more cleanup when it comes to support removal, potentially more pock marks in the model if you're not careful with support removal, potentially more broken parts, just potentially more issues in general. So I'm just redetecting the islands so we can just apply them manually, because when you do this and then you delete them, it kind of has a little panic attack about it. It doesn't think they exist anymore. It's good software. No, I'm actually joking. It's really great software. Alright, so now that I know where my actual islands are, I'm not going to be crazy and use the auto island tool. We're going to start placing our supports on the islands manually. And again, I am just supporting islands. This is not about supporting the model. This model will not succeed. That was not on purpose. With just the island supported, it will definitely pull itself out of the build plate. So please don't think that I am fully supporting the model. That is not what this is showing. We'll get into that in a later video. You just want to work your way around, finding those red areas there, and just adding support. Now, I am using light supports on the islands because they don't need to be heavy anchors. They're islands. They need a light support, and that is my own little custom size for light supports. Feel free to use it. It's fine with me. I have my own custom flavor for medium, light, heavy, and I do it for a reason. I just try to be as dainty as possible with where I place my supports in areas so they are clustered together, but not so much that they become columns or trees or walls, essentially, and that's what makes them really difficult to remove. And that's essentially what makes your model look like poo-poo caca by the time it's done, because you've got all these holes and pock marks and stuff in it. It's not a good thing. I mean, we already have drain holes in this particular model because of the size, but they're all going to be in areas where you're not really going to notice the bottom of the feet, bottom of the butt. We're just going to continue working our way around the model, adding the supports where we need to. This particular little one, I'm like, that's a little too close, so I'm going to use the advanced support and just move that over a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little micro brace just to make these a little stronger. I might go back and actually add real brace here later, but for now the micro brace is probably going to be enough. Once I add real anchors around that, I think it'll work just fine. Might add one or two more little pieces in there just to stabilize it a little bit. Again, these are mini or micro supports. They are very small. They kind of look like hairs, depending on the dimensions that you're using. So, you know, they get stringy sometimes, but they have an elasticity to them that work pretty well at like increasing the strength of other supports. So I use them as kind of like a rubber band. Alright, now we're coming over to the hand. This is what I was talking about before. The way I'm going to apply island supports to this hand is going to be far different from the way that the software would do it. I'm going to give it nice support on the thumb. I'm going to give it some little micro supports there. I'm going to give it one support in the middle of the hand. And I'm going to bridge over some mini supports from the fingertips. This will help avoid as much damage to the fingertips as possible, which are usually some points that get broken or popped off. Like tips get separated, and I'm going to put one more larger support there with a couple extra mini supports connected on the side to give it a nice little support system there that it can bounce off of. Maybe one little support bridge there. Boop. And we just want to make sure we're not going through the finger. I think I see one actually might be there. I'll take a look at that later. And we just need to keep going around and adding the rest of the island supports. Just make sure you make best use of your space Make sure not to collide too much. Avoid putting supports on top of each other far too often. Not the best way to do it. The support should be able to hold the model in place with their number and stability, not by clustering together. You can use bracings, which will improve their strength. That is definitely an applicable way to do it. Bracings aren't always necessary though. I do bracings sometimes on bases because they're a little thicker. They pull harder. They create more peel force on the build plate and the FEP. So you need something to balance that out. Almost got all the islands there on the air, and we'll almost be done with this island setup. And if you do like videos like this one, you want to see more, please comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell, tell us how you feel about it. We're going to try and offer a lot more supporting stuff. I do exclusively work in Lychee, so we don't really have a lot of support for stuff like G2 or Prusa or any of the other softwares. I have used them, but for the printers that I use, which are entirely Anycubic, I rely entirely on Lychee. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap up the rest of the islands. The hair tips, very important. Try to use some smaller tips on that as well, just to make sure you don't maintain that. Also, don't forget the inside of the model when doing the supporting. We do have the hollowing done, so we do need to look inside. Make sure that we get the insides of the model island supported as well. We have just about wrapped this up. We've got about 1, 2, 1 left. Where's this one? Ah, there you are. Okay, so that's one last one. It's going to be a sticker. Come on. And there we go. Now once you see the model do that, those little yellow bits start to come back up. The islands have been fully supported. It should say that down at the bottom there. No islands left to support. Additionally, you can do what's known as deleting islands. I don't advise that. That's a terrible idea. You can then reapply your raft at this point. One of the things I do is equalize the raft thickness to the support base thickness. So if it's 0.5, I'll go back and change those bases to a 0.5 thickness. And that's about it. Anyway, if you want to see the rest of this one supported, we have some additional videos coming out with her complete support done. Thanks again for watching, guys. Please comment, like, subscribe, and thank y'all for watching.